Hello everyone, and welcome to the Psychology of Meghan Markle. As you all know, my name is Alana, and I will be taking you through a very thorough explanation of how Meghan Markle changed her life from D-list actress to a household name we now hear too much of, all because she scammed her way into Prince Harry's life. This video will answer many questions we have, as I have been thinking about this topic for the past 2 years now. Questions like, how did this happen? Why is Harry destroying his family for a girl? And how does Meghan Markle operate behind the scenes? These will all be answered alongside other questions we all have. Sit back and relax, because the way Meghan Markle captivated Prince Harry is something that has been studied by many psychologists. Let's discuss some of the aspects of Prince Harry's life that Meghan Markle used to trick him into thinking she was his dream girl sent to him by fate. One of the biggest rules in social psychology when you're trying to impress someone is to appear to match their energy and give them what they don't have. Then at random moments, use fear to take back what you just gave them. Meghan met Harry as this super successful, independent, humble working girl, and that's how Harry still sees her today, which is important for later. How you first appear and what you do has a very long-lasting impact on the people you meet. You can trick almost anyone into thinking you're someone you're not just based on how you act. Meghan was clawing and fiending to find an A-list boyfriend. All of her ex-friends exposed her for using people and then dropping them when it no longer benefited her. She was going around asking friends while staying in London if any of them knew princes or single English men. When a mutual did know Prince Harry and set them up on a date, she did not come to play.
And she loved London. Loved the whole showbiz scene, wanted to get on, wanted to meet journalists, wanted to meet a, English chap to go out with. And look, she won the lottery and she wanted to be interviewed. And I was presenting for OKTV then. So I said to my producer, can we do a little interview with her? And he was like, no way, we've got Victoria Beckham here. We've got all these names, Eva Longoria. I don't know this woman, no.
When she first met Harry, she wore his mother's favorite perfume. Scents and smells in general can be powerful memory triggers. If Harry's mom wore a certain perfume around him as a kid, and then what he appears to think is his soulmate is also wearing the same thing, he's going to subconsciously group them. A very common theme we see with Meghan and Harry is Princess Diana. Let the record state that Meghan's power solely comes from a broken man, so it's not that she instilled issues into him, it's that she knew how to work his issues in order to favor her dreams and goals. Meghan secretly did things to appear as if she's the second coming of Princess Diana, and Harry sits here 24/7 saying, she's just like my mom.
So much of what Meghan is and how she is so similar to my mum.
Obviously, Meghan knew who Prince Harry was, and it's been exposed that she did in fact have an obsession with the royal family, Catherine Middleton, and most especially Princess Diana.
Your Royal Highness, take one. Go do the grocery shopping. I didn't have time to do it.
Their first date was anywhere between 1 to 3 hours. They change up the story of how long the date lasted every time. So it could either be 1 hour or 3 hours. Meghan made a point to end that date early because she was busy the next day. 2 things. Notice how the date is not longer than 3 hours and she ended it early. And notice how vague she is about why she needs to leave. Meghan didn't give the date enough time to get stale. The 2nd to 3rd hour in most hangouts is where the most fun is, and not letting the date run too long ensured Meghan that Harry would want to see her again. If there was one thing Meghan Markle wasn't, it would be busy. Meghan used the fact that she was on a TV show to make Harry think she was established in Hollywood and had all these projects lined up. It's not like Harry was going to snoop around and find out that Suits was on its last legs by season 4. Realistically speaking, he probably didn't know how Hollywood functions as a society until he moved to LA. So Meghan used his ignorance to fluff up her career, which in return made him think, oh my god, this beautiful Hollywood actress is making time for me in her crazy schedule. One of the first things Meghan says in her documentary with Harry was, right before we met, we got in another season of the show Suits. I was single for a couple of months, I was like, this is it, we're gonna travel. Notice how she needs to remind the viewer and Harry that before she met him, her super successful show was getting renewed for another season. Even though by this time Suits had naturally lost many of its viewers, Meghan still used the show to prove she was someone before Harry. As in why would I need to use him? I was on a show. I was traveling. I was living the life. I didn't need him. In the statement I mentioned above, she had no reason to bring up Suits because she just goes on to talk about how she was single and wanted to travel, but she made sure to include her one main thing before getting ready to talk about their relationship. By appearing busy and successful, Meghan tricked Harry into thinking she had no reason to use him. Why would she? She's on a successful show. Why would she need to use him? She's a famous actress. Is marrying Prince Harry her dream? Oh, of course not. She's just a brainy American who knows nothing about the royal family. In fact, she's never heard of Queen Elizabeth before in her entire life.
Now I'm starting to realize this is a big deal. I mean, Americans will understand this. We have medieval times, dinner and tournament. It was like that. Like I curtsied as though I was like I was a hugger. I've always been a hugger. I didn't realize that that is really jarring for a lot of Brits.
I have to teach you how to wave.
That's not a thing. You just sort of watch it and go, okay, I guess that's what, I mean, I guess you don't want to wave like an American. Like, ah!
He believed Meghan was her own established person who didn't care/know anything about the royal family. He says it in the beginning of their soap opera, his famous one-liner. Again, it just shows how little you knew. He couldn't think for 1 second of the possibility of her using him because she made herself seem fully established, honest, and vulnerable. Whenever they spoke about the royal family, she would laugh in amusement as if she was hearing this for the first time. You could see this when Harry says, "How do you tell someone that you bow down to your grandmother?" And then right away we see Meghan making a joke of it to show Harry that she's in it for him and not his strange lifestyle.
I met her and apparently I did a very deep curtsy and I don't remember it. And then we just sat there and we chatted and it was lovely.
She's lived in Canada for 7 years for work, and the Queen is on the currency of Canada. So for her to pretend to know nothing about the royal family, and she didn't know who was walking with the Queen when she met the family, is just nonsense, because she's all over the currency for Canada.
And I think, thank God I hadn't known a lot about the family. Thank God I hadn't researched. I would have been so in my head about all of it.
It's just so weird for her, she can't help but make a joke, acting as if this isn't her dream come true. By making jokes about royal tradition, Meghan made Harry feel like she's willing to outlook the difference and foreignness of his traditions, all because she loves him.
Harry and I are in the car and he says, okay, well, my grandmother's there, so you're gonna meet her. Oh, great. I loved my grandmother. I used to take care of my grandmother. This is great. He goes, right, do you know how to curtsy? What? I said, do you know how to curtsy? I didn't think that's what happens inside. And I said, but it's your grandmother. He goes, it's the Queen.
It's so weird and fascinating. It can't possibly be her dream come true.
To show respect. And I learned it very quickly. Right in front of the house. We just practiced and then walked in. And
You and Harry practiced?
Yeah, and Fergie ran out and she said, are you ready? Do you know how to curtsy? I said, oh my goodness, you guys.
Because a girl who's chasing attention from the royal family would die at any opportunity to partake in their traditions, feel like she's one of them. But Meghan is so different and loves Harry for himself and not his family's fame or $28 billion.
Even when Will and Kate came over and I had met her for the first time they came over for dinner, I remember I was in ripped jeans and I was barefoot. It's like I was a hugger. I've always been a hugger. I didn't realize that that is really jarring for a lot of Brits. I guess I'd started to understand very quickly that the formality on the outside carried through on the inside.
Let us not forget, she once begged her friend to get her in the headlines back when she was a D-list star.
Wanted to get on, wanted to meet journalists. So we were next to each other again, and it kind of went on from there. And she wanted to be interviewed, and I was presenting for OK TV then.
This is someone chasing attention and fame.
Slowly, I started seeing her disregard people. There's many we could name, like Piers Morgan. And she kind of used them, and when she knew there was no way more she could use them, she'd get rid of them.
Anyway, back to the appearing busy part. In their documentary, they almost beat up the viewer with this idea that Meghan had the whole summer of 2016 planned to take trips all throughout Europe and just have a single girl summer. Mind you, she wasn't single one bit.
Holy
She literally met Harry when she was already in another relationship, and that's something that's been exposed on her as well. We have talked about this in detail on our blog, go check it out. But Harry and the viewer aren't supposed to know that. They go into detail about how single Meghan was, and she even says, "I was really intent on being single." Lie, lie, lie. Her random, probably hired friend Lucy then says she had plans to go all around Europe, which then Meghan chimes in with, "I had my career, I had my life, I had my path, and then came H."
I had a career, I had my life, I had my path. And then came age.
I'm going to have to hold in as many sarcastic comments as possible, but it's really hard when you can see through someone very easily. She doesn't even do a good job of manipulating the viewer, especially if they've read one article about her past. Of course, Harry, or should I say H,
Came age.
wasn't reading anything about her, and by the time he was, she was already whispering in his ear.
I think she sold Harry a sad story, a poor girl story. She had to keep us out of it because it's not a true story.
He literally admits to going to her whenever he read something in the press about her, and how he got his own explanations from her. Yeah, that's not suspicious at all. This one line, "I had my career, I had my life, I had my path, and then came H," is supposed to trick us and Harry into thinking she lived this amazing fun life, and then had to sacrifice it all for him out of the blue so suddenly. It's not like she planned it, how could she? It's so sudden. She was gonna travel all across Europe. They also show a bunch of happy pictures of Meghan from her Instagram to show us her old life and how carefree she was, and now she can't even step outside because of the imaginary pops that hound them.
My mom or my friends or them calling me crying, just like, "Meg, they're not protecting you." And I realized that it was all happening just because I was breathing.
More from this theme of, I sacrificed everything for love.
You are making me scared. Been down in the middle of the night looking down my hallway like, are we safe? Are the doors locked? Is security on? Is everything? That's real. Are my babies safe?
I did this for you, when in reality she would have sacrificed her own mother for fame if she had to. She leaves their first date after an hour or 3 and tells him, "I have to go, I have plans." Again, tugging on the idea that she isn't using him and she has a whole life that has nothing to do with him, which just made him more interested in her, and she knew that. Before we move on, let's talk about Botswana. After Harry met Meghan twice, he asked her to come with him to Africa for some charity work he was doing. When he told her the 1 week he had off that he was set to go, she suddenly had the same exact week off, which Harry thought was more proof from the universe that Meghan was the one. Not once did he think she was free because she was on hiatus from work, which was a fact, she even said it, and if not, she was willing to move everything around to make this work. To him, it appeared more natural, and he even says, "I was astonished, she said yes. This woman, who I've only met twice, she's coming." red flag, but who are you going to preach to? This section alone could probably have 15 parts, so let me know down in the comments below if you want me to make more videos just about the fundamental lies and tricks Meghan uses. Meghan has set up the majority of her relationship with Harry based on fundamental lies and tricks. The first fundamental lie is that she didn't know much about the royal family. She truly has him believing it was love that blinded her into jumping into a world she knew nothing of. As we know now, she knew who Prince Harry was, she knew how his childhood ended up being, she wrote about princess dreams on her blog, she blogged about Prince William and Princess Catherine's wedding, and she was completely obsessed with Princess Diana. To lie this big to someone and have them feel like they are at fault constantly because they didn't prepare you well enough to be a part of their life is absolutely crazy. To this day, Harry will correlate his mom marrying into the royal family and knowing nothing to Meghan marrying into the royal family and knowing nothing. And that's why he feels the utmost responsibility for Meghan, as if it's his fault when she suffers because it's his life and family rules that make her suffer.
But I wasn't just being thrown to the wolves, I was being fed to the wolves.
Sure.
But we all know that she pined for Harry and wanted the glamour, the flash, the fame, the money. The only thing she didn't enjoy was being forced to do some royal activities. Harry says he hates himself for bringing Meghan into a world that made her feel suicidal. That's exactly what a manipulator would do, make you feel bad for their choices. She was never going to kill herself, but she would definitely benefit from Harry thinking that. To use suicide as a pawn in your game when you don't actually have thoughts of killing yourself is another fundamental lie that had Harry fearing for his life. Another woman lost in my life due to the institution is what he screams at night. She literally told him something along the lines of, I'm not going to actually do it, but just to let you know what I'm thinking, while pregnant. Now, obviously, just to put a little bit of a disclaimer, no matter what kind of person you are or what intentions you have, mental health is not something that's supposed to be taken lightly or even be talked about in a joking way just because of whatever type of person you are, especially when pregnant, when that alone can be very challenging. But I do want to mention that pregnant Meghan telling Harry she was going to harm herself was doing so in a way to prove to him that his family didn't care enough about them because they told her she shouldn't get therapy because it looks bad on them, when in reality that's not true, and several members of the royal family have had experience with therapy publicly. And Meghan telling Harry exactly how she was going to do it was also a little questionable, and her reasoning as to why she wasn't going to do anything was because of his mother, which is also questionable. Harry then says to Oprah that she didn't want to put him in a position of losing another woman in his life, with their baby still unborn. Again, mental health is very, very important and nothing to be taken lightly. It makes me question her intentions and how much she cares about Harry, because she wasn't talking about mental health in any positive way. She was still doing it to place blame on the royal family and to prove to Harry that his family at the end of the day doesn't care about them and this is how much they don't care. When in reality, as we've said before, many royals have publicly spoken about therapy and have even went to therapy. Another fundamental trick was pretending to be a humble girl who would love to live in Africa.
Yes, you heard right.
Back in early 2020, when more people started learning that Meghan was a fraud, there were a few rumors going around that got confirmed by my sources that said she painted him a picture of how sometimes she needs a break from the fame and fortune, and spending more time in Africa would bring her peace and serenity. Which caused Harry to be like, oh my god, this is crazy, sometimes I think about living here. And the only reason she said that is because she knew he did a lot of work in Africa, and that was something he honored because his mom also did a lot of work there.
They've adopted Prince Harry as their own. So says his mentor and friend.
Harry is one of us.
To a man who wants to make a real difference in the world, Prince Harry has opened up about how Africa has changed his life forever.
I've often talked about Africa as my second home, and I've often been asked why I love it so much.
appeared to match their energy. Harry was tired of the constant fame. Suddenly, so was Meghan. Harry viewed life filled with glamour and fame as meaningless and without purpose. Suddenly, so did Meghan. Harry felt peace and serenity doing work in Africa because it honored his mom and made him feel good on the inside, to the point where he expressed thoughts of living there. Suddenly, Meghan would love to live in Africa. She made him believe in a world filled with money-hungry leeches. They were the perfect two. She used his trauma with fame and paparazzi to make him feel seen. And you could see this when she lies in the Netflix documentary and says she didn't want to stand out, so she wore a lot of muted colors during her time as a royal.
I was like, well, what's a color that they'll probably never wear? Camel, beige, white. So I wore a lot of muted tones, but it also was so I could just blend in.
That and the fact that she made up some dress code color protocol.
So I wore a lot of muted tones, but it also was so I could just blend in.
The muted colors in question. Then comes the faith and trust aspect. She put a lot of faith and trust in him. While most people might have regarded him as the younger brother, the one who isn't William, the one who isn't going to be king, Meghan made him feel like she only needed him for him. In Harry's mind, Meghan could easily be asking him to take her to Paris or some other luxurious spot like most girls would if they were dating a prince, but Meghan had the same ideals and morals as him. I wonder where they did end up moving to. Hint, it wasn't Africa. It's funny, the humble girl who wants to live in Africa had a $200,000 baby shower. Another fundamental trick, acting childlike. When Harry and Meghan described the beginning of their relationship, they used two key words, fun and childlike. This is where Meghan gives Harry something he didn't have. Remember earlier on in this video, I said the best way to imprint on someone is to give them something they don't have. Harry is a big crybaby, before and after Meghan. Call it trauma or whatever, but he views his life as this complicated, fake, unfair prison that he was born into. When quirky, carefree Meg came around, it lifted his spirits. He couldn't get enough of it. Then came the childlike aspect. When manipulators seduce someone, they try their best to find out what they're missing in life and then be the human imagery of that.
So much of what Meghan is and how she is so similar to my mum. She has the same compassion, she has the same empathy, she has the same confidence. She has this warmth about her.
Harry lost his childhood after his mother died. He had to grow up too quickly and be like William, who was ready to sacrifice his own emotions for the union of their country. William always had it in him to put on a brave face and realize his fate. Maybe it was something in his DNA, or maybe it was from constantly hearing, "You're gonna be future king," since the day he was born. Harry had it easier because he had less pressure and he had less to sacrifice than William, so you think he would remember that when he's ripping his family apart on national television with his American actress of a wife.
Medieval times, dinner and tournament.
Anyway, we will talk more about Harry's resentment, but for now let's go back to childlike. Give them something they lack in life. Harry lost his childhood and Meghan gave it back to him. She imitated his mother during his actual childhood, where she nurtured and cared for him, but was also playful and fun. If we can all see how broken Harry is from a screen, you can only imagine how easy it is to use his own vulnerability against him in person. Leave it to trauma-filled Harry to also feel like he didn't belong growing up. In order to spare this video from getting longer than it already is, let's cut the details. Harry always felt out of place. We see that now. He wasn't going to be king. He didn't have what William had. He lost his childhood at a young age. He was a ginger. He was simply lost. So then comes Meghan with her fake self-image issues as well. I was too white for the black kids and too black for the white kids. Who even knows how true that statement is?
Most people didn't treat me like a black woman. So that talk didn't have to happen for me.
Because according to Meghan and her mom, Meghan didn't know America had a racist past and didn't know what the N-word meant because her mom didn't teach it to her. She was white passing, and for the majority of her life, race didn't matter. She never experienced how much race mattered until she was in the UK.
Obviously now people are very aware of my race because they made it such an issue when I went to the UK, but before that, most people didn't treat me like a black woman.
But when she met Harry, she also needed to relate to his struggles with self-identity. That's when she gave him the "What am I" show, probably in the fall of 2016. And Harry seems to have taken a hit to his ego by constantly hearing that he's a ginger and looks different from the rest of the family. When talking about Meghan meeting his family, he says some of them were so pleased by her,
Sure, Jan.
they didn't know what to do with themselves, because how could a ginger get such a beautiful girl? You know, they say to get someone to open up to you and trust you, you need to be vulnerable and open up with them first. So while Harry berated Meghan with stories of his insecurities and self-identity issues, she gave back. She would also tell him tales of growing up with divorced parents, growing up and not knowing who you are, struggling with how you looked and not feeling good enough, and that made him feel safe. This would be heartwarming if it wasn't all an act. She knew Harry's issues before she met him. A simple Prince Harry Google search and you get all his dirty laundry aired out. That's what makes their dynamic so dangerous. He learned about her from her, while she learned about him from the press. She was going to be anything he needed her to be, and because he was so broken and traumatized, it only made him an easier target. Misery loves company is all I'm gonna say, and yes, that includes fake misery. We as humans hate feeling like we are going through something alone, so when someone comes along and shares our struggles, we feel seen and safe with them. Meghan can get Harry to do almost anything she wants with the simple hint of, "I don't want to have the same fate as your mommy tease." How did Meghan get Harry to leave the royal family? She made him feel like by staying, she was going to suffer the same fate as Princess Diana. This is the part where you take back what you gave them. She then played on his insecurities about not being good enough in the family. This is how I picture her speeches to Harry, ready? "And why can't we move to the US and start our legacy there and also work for the royal family? Where's the freedom for your choices? Nobody knows how smart you are. They don't want to see your potential because they know you'll be bigger than William." Imagine that. You in California, bigger than the King of England. You're telling me that wouldn't do it for you? Like, come on.
When someone who's marrying in, who should be a supporting act, is then stealing the limelight or is doing the job better than the person who was born to do this, that upsets people. It shifts the balance. The only way that your charities can succeed and the only way that your reputation can be grown or improved is if you're on the front pages of those newspapers. But the media are the ones who choose who to put on the front page. Every single member of the family, senior members of the family had been, including the Queen. And on the front page of the Telegraph, Meghan.
I went, oh my God.
She was like, "But it's not my fault." And I said, "I know." And my mum felt the same way.
A man doesn't one day start destroying his entire family on the precedent of truth-telling unless he's been poked enough to explode. He's had years to expose William, but never did. Everything was fine before Meghan came and started putting salt in his wounds and setting him up to break his closest bond. She needed William out because she knew he didn't like her and was powerful enough to influence the family and Harry. So how do you cut out the enemy? You don't. You have your victim do the dirty work for you and make them think it was their choice all along. The saying goes, if you don't want someone to break out of prison, don't let them know they're in prison. She admitted in the documentary to telling him, "It's on you to protect us." If anyone put the responsibility of the press on me, I'd simply tell them they're crazy. You want him to do what exactly? The only thing Harry could do was fight with his family about the press because he had Meghan in his ear. Harry went crazy accusing his family of leaking and planting stories about him and Meghan in the press simply because Meghan gave him the responsibility of protecting them.
A key piece of that story that made me aware that the contents of the letter between me and my father had been leaked was that we were willing to relinquish our Sussex titles.
His dad ends up telling him, "My dear boy, you cannot control the press." And because Harry, who's 12, says, "I fundamentally disagree," and he's been in a 3-year-long goose chase with his wife battling the press who isn't going anywhere. And every 20 minutes, Harry is correlating the loss of his mom to the future possibility of the loss of Meghan, which would then just ruin his own family. She uses that fear and trauma to get him to excuse any behavior of hers, and that's why he notoriously said, "Whatever Meghan wants, she gets." He thinks Princess Diana has been reincarnated into Meghan, and by protecting her, he gets to control his present because he couldn't control his past. Yes, the first half of that was sarcastic. I know I said I wouldn't do it, but it's so painful not to troll. He sees how different-minded Meghan is from the rest of the family, and he can't help but think the only ever woman in my life to break the rules was my mom. She's breaking royal rules because she doesn't respect you or your family. She got what she wanted, you to be tied down to her, and now she doesn't need the rest of them. And let it be known that Meghan does aim to be the modern-day Princess Diana in the public. When she copies her ideology and breaks free from the royal family, she wants the same support and pizzazz as Princess Diana. She wants to be what Princess Diana would have been if it hadn't been for that car crash. But newsflash, Princess Diana didn't get off easy and was highly criticized all the time. It's very hard to see someone's truth when they are imitating a person not just for you, but for the whole world. If a person comes into your life and suddenly you're at odds with everyone else in your life, just know that person is bad news. Tell me why Meghan came into Harry's life and suddenly all these family issues have been made public and Harry has burned all family bridges? Do you really think if she cared about him, she would watch him destroy his relationship with his family? I'll do you one better. Do you think if she cared about him, she would be the reason why he's fighting with his family? No. It's obvious Harry has resentment towards the family. That's what happens when you move past an issue without getting to the root of the problem. Ever since his mom died, he has blamed the royal family for not protecting her better, and in a way, probably blamed his own father for driving her away. Even though he doesn't have what it takes to be king, he could easily be storing resentment towards William for being the firstborn. After all, it isn't William releasing a book called Spare. And what does Meghan do? She pokes at all these little issues and riles him up to insanity. You have more to offer than William, they just can't see it. Take charge of how we are being treated and they'll finally take you seriously. Our children deserve the same type of treatment and titles as your brother's kids. What makes them better than ours? Suddenly, it's midnight and Harry's choking William. Harry has always wanted to leave the royal family. Sure. I'm not sure if this is public fact or source information, but he definitely always viewed the institution as an inconvenience to his life, and it's the reason why he would be away most of the time. But guess what? He never left. Because deep down, he didn't want to. It was his family. And no matter how much of an inconvenience he felt like they were, he simply wasn't gonna leave all he's ever known. Until she came. Because remember, Harry had all these issues prior to Meghan, but it was Meghan who used all these manipulative tactics to bring out the worst in him and his family. There's a reason Harry is now jumping to expose resentment with the family and releasing a whole book about it. And by the way, using social media and the public as a form of therapy is never going to work. Trashing your family will only burn bridges rather than fix whatever you're feeling. But that's what she needs. She needs him to crash and burn just in case the plan fails. She wants to be the only person in his life. She's already turned so many of his supporters against him to decrease any power he might have. At this point, he's embedded to her and doesn't think without her thinking for him.
Did Meghan ever mention...
It's absolutely horrifying to see how she's setting up his downfall just in case. That's why while he was out there taking the punches for her and for Spare, she hid back. And maybe Harry was fine living as the Spare. Maybe deep down he knew he's lucky to be the second-born. And it's very easy to use someone's insecurities as a way to benefit yourself, because deep down, everyone is deeply insecure. So when someone comes in and makes a simple comment aimed to trigger you, suddenly it brings out all years of resentment, anger, pain. Why else do you think he is willingly ripping apart his family? He'd rather blame them for issues than realize he still has them, or realize Meghan's the only issue. And she will never let him get powerful enough where he's going to break free. He thinks he's fine and that these are his choices. He thinks by taking out his anger on his family publicly, he's also in control, when it's just Meghan behind the scenes setting him up. She needs him fully on her side because without him there, nobody will listen to her. That's why anyone who talks bad about Meghan or complains about her, let's say his own brother, doesn't even get the time of day. She has him convinced everyone is out to get them. I decided to use their Netflix soap opera as a way to visually explain how Meghan does the things she does, because you can really see her work on Harry to the point where he is now this person waiting hand and foot on Meghan. Well, that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. I'm very interested in reading them. Follow us on our social media for more, and as always, I'll see you next time.